So Counter-Strike Global Offensive is one of my favourite games of all time, and I've sunk far too many hours into that game. And I thought, why not combine Warhammer with Counter-Strike? So this is the story of how I painted my very first Space Marine in the theme of an AWP Asiimov. That's orange, black and white. And if you've not seen it, I'll throw it on screen now, but it's a very, very classic CSGO skin. And it's been put on many other skins other than the AWP as well. We've got an AK Asiimov, we've got an M4A4 Asiimov as well. It's a massive CSGO skin and it's very, very popular. So I thought, why not make that a theme of one of my Space Marines? So to start this little project, I bought an Infernus Marine start kit. And in that kit, you get 3 Marines, you get a few paints, which are for painting an Ultramarine, which are not very useful for this, and a really rubbish brush. So I just randomly chose one of the Ultramarines to start. They're push fit, so they slide together really easily, and you just put a little dab of glue on each of the joints. So once I'd built the Marine, I started priming. So I bought the cheapest spray paint I could find on Amazon. It's called High Coat. It's just a white primer. I think it was about £6.50 delivered. It's really cheap. I don't think it's designed for miniatures, but it does the job really well in my opinion. So the plan behind priming, because it was my first time ever doing it, I put some blue tack on the bottom of the Marine, stuck it on some cardboard, put it in my garden on a little table, and then I got the spray paint and I just did little spurts as I moved my hand over the Mini, just to make sure I didn't hold it in one spot and then leave the paint to just build up and cover the details. So just want little spurts as you're moving your hand. So I did start with white primer because I wanted the paint job to be nice and bright. However, you can do black because the skin comes in different ways. So if you've got an AWP Asiimov battle scarred, for instance, underneath the white part of the skin, you can see the black like base coat coming through. So you can do that with your model if you choose to. So next up, I prepped my paint palette. So what I did was put a bit of water on my sponge. It's just a green Stuff World basic paint palette. It's the cheapest one going. Just prepped my water palette, put a bit of water on the sponge, and put the little see-through thin material paper over the top, just to keep my paints nice and fresh and just so they last longer, because I'm a beginner and I need a bit more time to adjust and paint specifics, and maybe I want to go back to that paint later on. It'll just last a bit longer. So the 3 colours I used on this project were Vallejo Orange Fire game colour. Next up, I used just dead white Vallejo, and then I used just Vallejo black game colour. So I chose those 3 paints because I thought they were pretty strong matches to the actual skin. So now the painting begins. So now it's the tricky part, it's the painting. So please bear in mind, I am new to painting minis, so I might not do everything the way you're supposed to be doing it, but I am learning at the same time. So if you do spot anything I do wrong, let me know in the comments. If you know any techniques I could be using to improve the paint job, let me know. I'm open to any ideas and I just want to learn. So I was a bit nervous starting with the Orange Fire Vallejo. So I went for like the biggest surface area I could get. So I went for the sort of hip guards. So I painted those orange first, because I thought they were a low pressure and easy win, and I could see how the colour looked and see if it matched the actual skin. So once I got a little bit of confidence and I thought they looked okay, I thought, yeah, let's tackle the trim of the pauldrons. It's quite tricky. It's trickier than you think. So I kind of butchered that. However, I just let it dry and then I used the white Vallejo to clean it up afterwards. The fact that I'm new and I'm not very experienced with a paintbrush means I also have wobbly hands, so I'm not very accurate with where I'm trying to put the paint, which doesn't help when I'm trying to paint the pauldrons. Next was the kneecaps, leg bolts and backpack. So next I worked on the undersuit of the armour, which is like the bits between the main bulky pieces of armour. So what I did was mix a bit of black and white just to make a little grey, so I painted them in as grey. The next bit was quite tricky because it was the sort of decals which have been printed on the model. Because these are from the starter set, they're kind of supposed to be painted as Ultramarines, so they've got decals of a U for Ultramarines and they've got a V for the 5th chapter. It is raised off the model, so I thought it'd be quite easy to do, and there is probably a technique to make this a bit easier. However, I just went for it, and it was very, very rough, but I just cleaned it up later and I went back and retouched it, and eventually it looked okay. So on the helmet, there's like a stripe that goes across the top of his head, and then he's got like some ear sort of guard thing that goes over the ear. I thought, why not I paint that ear part black, and maybe I'll paint the sort of venting around his face black as well, and then leave the rest white, maybe an orange stripe there, which was the plan ideally. However, once I painted that, I messed up because I tried to start painting the grates and it just didn't look good. So what I ended up doing was just painting most of the face black and then keeping the orange trim on the sort of Mohican-y stripe at the top of his head. It was a bit of panic, however, I think it does fit the skin anyway. As I said, the skin comes in different ways. You can get battle scarred and have black sections of the skin anyway, so the black does come through the white sometimes. This was the most stressful part of the whole process for me. It was painting the eyes, and now this was on a mask, it's not even on a human, so it's probably pretty easy for some of you. However, as a beginner, my hands are shaky and I have no technique, so I had to watch a few YouTube videos just to see how other people do it. But I got a little technique down where you just slowly move the brush side to side with the tiniest bit of white paint on the end. And I did white because I wanted to base it white and then put a bit of colour afterwards just to make the eyes a bit brighter. I tried it the first time and I completely butchered the eye because I had a bit too much paint on the end of my brush. So I just went back with black, covered it up again, wait for it to dry, and I went back for a second go. Put the tiniest bit of white paint on, and miraculously I did it. I did it on one side, however the other side, the mini's like holding the big weapon and it's covering where I'd be putting the motion to do the technique. So I had to like cut the motion in half and do a shorter version, which was a bit trickier. However, I hit the spot and the eye looked pretty decent with the white. So I went back in with a Citadel red paint. I think I went for a blood paint because I heard that the blood paints can have a nice glisten and they look nice as lenses. So I went for, I think it was corn blood for the blood god paint. So next, I had seen many YouTubers doing edge highlighting, so I wanted to give that a go. So what I did was the top of the knees first because that looked really easy. So what you do with this, you just sort of choose the raised parts of the armor and then you sort of put the edge of your brush along the edge of the armor piece and it leaves a nice line over the top of the armor, and if you get it right it looks really clean, and if you do it all over the model it looks amazing in my opinion. However, I did try to add some more light elements to the model. For instance, I mixed the black with the white, I made like a really dark grey and I put it on the top of the helmet, just like outlining where the sort of Mohican-y area of orange is, just to indicate that the sun is shining from above him. And I put it at the top of the jetpack as well. I did like white and orange to make a lighter orange, but at the top of the jetpack parts. So for the gun, I used black to paint the main part of the gun, and then I used Iron Warriors silver to paint the barrel of the gun. I painted some of the details orange, and then I left some of the other parts white so it would match the skin. So the last step was to put some varnish on the model. So what I have is a glossy varnish, which I think could have been a mistake here. And as I said before, I'm new to this, I'm going to make mistakes, but what I did was put it on my paint palette, I just brushed it on, slathered it all over the place because I thought, oh yeah, it's going to protect the paint on the model, it doesn't really matter. However, I might have brushed a bit too much on, it's very shiny. So now it's time to base the model. I've never based a model in my life, so this was a little intimidating. However, I had collected a bit of sand, rubble, and kept it in a little container for this occasion because I wanted to let it dry out so I could use it for something like this. So I thought it'd be the perfect time to test this out and see how it looks. So what I did was I slathered on some PVA glue. I wasn't really worrying about covering the boots because obviously if he's running through sandy grit he's going to get dirty boots, so I didn't mind if the sand clinged to his boots a little bit. However, I did paint a bit too much glue, so I had to get some paper towels to just wipe that up. However, it weren't an issue and I just rolled with it. So next I put the mini in a little tub so I didn't get the grit everywhere, and then I just sort of sprinkled the grit onto the base, trying not to get it on the rest of the model. However, it didn't really matter because obviously if he's in a gritty, sandy environment, his armor's going to get sandy and gritty, so it doesn't really matter, to be fair. However, I just sort of targeted the base. While I was sprinkling, I did see a cool rock, so I moved that to the front because I like the idea of seeing that and it being a little focus point on the base. So there you go, we've got a Space Marine that looks like an AWP Asiimov. Let me know in the comments what you want me to try and paint next. Maybe it could be another Counter-Strike skin, maybe a fade. That could be a really cool challenge to try and paint a Space Marine fade. That could be really cool. Let me know in the comments if you want me to do that. Drop the video a like and please subscribe, it really helps. Thank you.